Hey, thanks for joining us at We've Been Drinking MMA. This was a crazy main event fight, Volkanovski versus Makhachev 2. And Makhachev took this fight in the first round with a head kick and follow-up hammer fists, and the ref had to pull him off. It was unbelievable. In the interview after the fight, Makhachev said exactly how he set it up. He actually decided to go for a low kick to the calf, then some punches, some exchanging, just some little feinting and stuff. Then he went for a body kick. And then so he had it set up for the head kick, when you go low and then you're going to go high later. So even though Makhachev thought it was going to be like a body kick, that's what happened. He blocked with a body kick. He did have the fist up, to block, but it was kind of like on the lower half of his head. And so Makhachev just drilled it with the left high kick to the, and it just went on top of the fist. It was phenomenally drilled. Makhachev literally said that he drilled that in practice for Charles Oliveira, who we all know is a great head kicker himself, who finished his last fight with a head kick and follow-up punches versus Beneil Dariush. So Makhachev knew that he was going to want to try and battle head kick for head kick versus Charles, and it just worked out perfect for the Volkanovski fight. It was an unbelievable head kick. It just, connected perfect. And right away, Volkanovski was on ice skates. And, Makhachev actually landed just a slight, it just hit like very, very slight punch that landed like by the hair. And that one, while Volkanovski was going down and he was already on skates, he was already going down. And then, of course, the follow-up 3 or 4 hammer fists, and then one punch that just kind of the ref was trying to take Makhachev off, and that barely landed. So Volkanovski, finally got his wits about him and started trying to go for the takedown. He was thinking about wrestling Volkanovski. Volkanovski trying to wrestle Makhachev, and the ref pushed Makhachev off. And Volkanovski, after doing that, a lot of times when you get knocked out, you start going for the legs right away. Sometimes they go after the legs of the ref. This time he was going for the legs of Makhachev. Makhachev was already gone with a finger in the air, number one. Actually, no, Makhachev kind of was like, no, that's okay. He was just, I guess he knew the finish was coming. He talked about the finish the whole press conference, the lead up. He said, this time I'm going to finish him because every round I'm going to go in for the finish. And he did it, man. He is so confident. And back to Volkanovski, though, Volkanovski was, he sat back again, and he was really hurt. And so after going for the legs out of instinct, after waking back up, he went right back down with a bloody forehead. And it was tough to see. Volkanovski's such a nice guy. He took this fight on 11 days notice. I think everyone is just amazed that he took the fight on that short notice. Regardless, Makhachev looked amazing, and Volkanovski he didn't see it coming. He just didn't see that coming. Obviously, if he trained, he could have done better, but regardless, it looks like Makhachev is just on another level right now as far as his planning, his strategy, and his execution. And honestly, I want to see Makhachev move up to 170 and fight Leon Edwards for the belt there, because Makhachev's been calling for it. He's been, we said he was finished 5 out of his last 6. Now he's finished 6 out of his last 7. And the last, victim was Volkanovski, who's one of the pound for pound greatest fighters ever. I think Makhachev deserves to move up because he's been asking for it since last fight. And now he finished Volkanovski. There's really nothing else. I mean, Gaethje would be interesting, obviously, but I really think the fight is to move up to go fight Edwards. Obviously Muhammad or Belal Muhammad maybe deserves a title shot first before that, but maybe after that or whatever, because he doesn't want to maybe pass up Belal. But regardless, man, it was a pound for pound great performance, inspirational, and from both fighters. And at the end they hugged, and it was just good to see them embrace and just show that respect for each other, and even though there was a little bit of talk, back and forth leading up about, last fight, how it was in Australia and how Makhachev needed to rehydrate, and Makhachev wanted more rehydration time. Volkanovski said, I believe in my skills. I don't need to rehydrate, things like that. I think it was ultimately these are 2 amazing champions who respect each other. Phenomenal fight. Makhachev just showed that he's really, he said it was his team. He said his team pushed him and pushes him in practice every day, and that's the reason why he was able to perform and put the performances he's been putting together, because of his team. He credited his team, and it was amazing to see that type of respect, and showing that it wasn't about him, it was about his team. So, Makhachev, I'm a huge fan now too, after these last 2 performances specifically. He's been amazing, and just ultimately, what was a phenomenal fight, phenomenal performance. Ultimately, Volkanovski was trying to block the head kick. It's just he was thinking it was more body, and Makhachev just set it up perfect. And who would have thought Makhachev ends it with a first-round head kick, right? I don't think Volkanovski saw it coming. I don't think anyone saw it coming, and that's why it worked, right? Sometimes it's the things that you don't see coming. That's the one that really can knock you out. So appreciate you all listening and watching, and I just want to say appreciate all the support, that we got from this event. It was amazing to see all the comments and everybody just being so nice and supportive and encouraging. Honestly, it's phenomenal to see, and can't wait for next event, and appreciate you all. Thank you. Hey, thanks for joining us here at We've Been Drinking MMA for the recaps and highlights of the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card. This is the co-main event, Chimaev versus Usman, and Khamzat Chimaev won this fight. He took the first and third round. So ultimately, the first round, he actually got a 10-8 because he basically just took him down immediately, and he just controlled him basically the whole round. And so 2 of the judges gave a 10-8 round, and 1 gave a 10-9 round. Usman took round 2. It was really good to see him actually outstrike Chimaev. I heard Chimaev actually said that he hurt his hand in the first round. So second round, a little bit easier for Usman, I guess. Chimaev was less aggressive. But Usman ultimately, taking nothing away. He even buckled Chimaev. I mean, it's good to see him just punching, using that boxing and just staying away from Chimaev. In the third round, though, ultimately, what's his name? Chimaev basically, he was a little bit too much. Usman was stuffing the takedowns, which was really cool to see. But ultimately, Chimaev did get that takedown in the third round as well. And that's what really cinched it for him. He won rounds 1 and 3. And it was just, it was tough on Usman, right? Like 1 week notice, it was really tough for him to really get the groove. But ultimately, he put on a show. And in even the last 10, 15 seconds, it was amazing in the third round where he just said, let's go. And him and Chimaev traded for the last 7 seconds of the fight. Nothing really landed, hit shoulder, things like that. But it was really cool to see them just go all out. And for the fans, and, it was cool they embraced. It was really cool to see that type of an ending. Ultimately, Chimaev is going to get the title shot against Sean Strickland now. Dana said that earlier in the week. Whoever the winner of this fight was going to get Sean Strickland. And ultimately, Chimaev showed his speed was too much for Usman. His aggression, his unbelievable, chain takedowns with his punch to the takedown. He just gets deep shots, and he just does not give up on those single legs. And he just, is so fast that it just works. He's a big guy, bigger than most people, and he's fast. It's going to be really tough to stop him. He did show that he wasn't walking into punches this time like he did against Burns a couple fights ago. So, he's definitely evolving, and he's going to be dangerous for Sean. As we know, Sean can definitely stuff takedowns, but Chimaev, we know, is a different level, and he's faster than Sean. It's going to be a very intriguing matchup. So I can't wait to see that. But thank you so much for joining us for this breakdown. And look forward to any likes, subscribes, and comments from you all. And thank you again for listening and watching. Hey, thank you for joining us with We've Been Drinking today. We've been drinking MMA. We are breaking down the Johnny Walker Magomed Ankalaev fight on that Volkanovski Makhachev 2 pay-per-view card. And this is a weird fight because it ended in a no contest. It was weird because Ankalaev dropped Johnny Walker with a body punch, a flash knockdown, and then Ankalaev just took him to the fence. And then when Walker had his knee on the ground, Ankalaev threw a knee. I just think that he might not have known the rule there, and it was a grounded opponent, and so he threw the knee. It landed on Johnny Walker's face, and the ref pulled him off and gave him time. And then what was so weird was that Walker was totally fine. He was fine. He was standing. He was just clearing his eyes, wiping his eyes. He's like, yeah, I'm good. But of course, the doctor was not Brazilian, obviously, and was asking him. I think Johnny Walker was kind of like, yeah, whatever, I'm good, that type of thing, and just was looking away. The doctor didn't get a response he wanted, but ultimately the doctor didn't really take more than 15 seconds. It was weird, 10 seconds. Usually it's hey, are you good? Hey, put your arm on Walker's shoulder, maybe, make sure to do that. But anyways, the ref goes to the doctor. The doctor goes to the ref and just says he's not fit to continue, and then literally the ref waves off the fight, and it ended up being a no contest. Johnny Walker literally shoved the ref because he was just like, no, I'm ready to fight. What are you talking about? And Dana White had to get in the cage, and there was a bunch of people and security that were trying to get Walker to back off, and Walker was fine after that. But ultimately, it was a weird no contest. Walker was fit to continue. Yeah, it was just unfortunate, but ultimately, Ankalaev did show that he was aggressive, and he was landing punches that weren't getting countered by Johnny Walker, even though Johnny Walker had a 7-inch reach advantage. And ultimately, Ankalaev did look like he was en route to he was doing well, right? He dropped Walker with a body shot. He was definitely looking great. And Walker was kind of, I think, hesitant slightly, but ultimately, you wanted to see the fight go on, obviously, and it was just a weird stoppage. It never should have been stopped. I think the doctor, I have a feeling that they're probably going to be not letting that doctor in the octagon probably ever again. I never seen this doctor before, but ultimately, this doctor messed up earlier in another fight. But anyways, that's another story. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to this breakdown. It was unfortunate, but again, the takeaways is that Ankalaev looked great. Walker looked pretty good, and I can't wait to see them fight. They'll probably rematch again, probably is what I'm thinking. But again, thank you so much for listening and watching, and please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We've been drinking MMA. We're doing our recaps and highlights for the Aliskerov versus Warlley Alves fight. Aliskerov was amazing this fight. He KO'd Alves in the first round really quickly. We were expecting a KO, but this was just unbelievable. Basically, Aliskerov actually threw a jab that sat down Alves. Alves, I'm sorry. And it was amazing because after that, Warlley got right back up, though, and then he threw a kick that partially landed, mostly glove on Warlley, blocked it, and then Aliskerov, after that, it bounced Alves into the fence a little bit more, and that kind of gave, I think, Aliskerov that idea to go for the flying double knee, and it just landed beautifully. And then after that, it was just an uppercut and a couple hooks, and that's all she wrote. That was it. Aliskerov looked amazing. And, it was just, it was a bad matchup for Alves in the end, right? He was 170-pounder moving up to 185. It was kind of unfortunate. He looked okay. It was just one of those things where reach disadvantage, power disadvantage, weight disadvantage. It was just too much. And Aliskerov looked phenomenal, right? He improves to 2-0 in the UFC with 2 finishes. I can't wait to see him fight again. I thought he looked phenomenal. His speed looked good. He was agile. He adjusted to Warlley Alves' aggressive style, and Aliskerov just figured out the path to victory, which was, all right, let me just change it up and just throw a jab, and just let's see what happens with that. So it's good to see Aliskerov use other tools in his arsenal other than just, big power and just big takedown power and things like that. So it was nice to see him change it up with the jab. It worked beautifully. I'm sure he's been working on it. But yeah, thank you so much for listening and watching. And please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We've been drinking MMA for this breakdown of Muin Gafurov versus Said Nurmagomedov on this amazing pay-per-view card for Volkanovski Makhachev 2. Man, Said Nurmagomedov finished him in the first round. Actually, finished him in 1 minute, 20 seconds in the first round. It was amazing. Ultimately, it was a really quick finish. Said went for a head kick. It landed, and it pushed Muin Gafurov back, and then Gafurov, I think, got a little bit angry or just overexcited, and it was just like, I want to get him back quick. And he started on the run, started throwing punches. He whiffed, he missed, and then ultimately that led to Said Nurmagomedov throwing a check hook, which missed, but it exactly was perfect because it went right behind Gafurov's head, and then because he threw it really quickly, that check hook, it missed, but it was right around Gafurov's neck, and that was able to pull Gafurov into the Darce choke, and it was a standing Darce choke, and he just finished it. He had it for about 6, 7, 8 seconds, and then he just kind of bent down a little bit to create more leverage, and that was it, man. Gafurov tapped really quickly. I think he felt a little bit stupid for doing that, for just rushing in against a talented striker and honestly a talented submission artist with the chokes. And 2 fights ago, Said did choke somebody out when they were going after him, and he did the same thing with the Darce choke. So I think Gafurov knew better, and that's why Gafurov looked, like, wow, I shouldn't have done that type of look in his face after. But Said just made quick work. He should have. Ultimately, Gafurov was 0-1 in the UFC, and Said was 6-2, but should have been maybe possibly 7-1. in the UFC with that last loss to Martinez that maybe should have been a win. So it just showed there was levels to the game. Ultimately, Saeed needs somebody in the top 15 again to challenge him. But ultimately, it was good to see him in the win column again. And yeah, please like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this breakdown. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We've been drinking MMA. We're doing the breakdowns for the recaps and breakdowns and highlights for the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card. Hey, this fight was between two grapplers, two top 12 fighters. Mokaev versus Elliott, and Mokaev did a great job, man. He just showed he was a better grappler than Elliott because Tim Elliott was trying to stop him and he just couldn't quite do it. Mokaev eventually got the arm triangle in the third round, but ultimately Elliott got the early takedown in round 1. It was pretty cool to see, but again, Mokaev's just so much of a stronger grappler that eventually he got he reversed. He eventually got the takedown as well. Either fighter could have gotten the round. It was a close round overall. But round 2, Mokaev just got the immediate takedown. Like 3 seconds into the round, he was like, boom, got him down. And, it was just, he just controlled the round on top for round 2, just easy cruise to that round win. And then round 3, it was kind of one of those things where they were in the near the fence. Elliott threw a knee to Mokaev, and when Mokaev was grounded again, so it was illegal. And then when they got the position back, just Mokaev just grabbed the leg and just was such a talented grappler, just got the right rhythm and took him down, and then just boom, mounted and got right into the arm triangle choke. It was an amazing display after he got kneed in the head illegally. So Mokaev just showed that he's got a lot of heart and a lot of will, right? A lot of toughness to be able to get the sub literally right after he got kneed in the top of the head. So, unbelievable performance by Mokaev. Now he's got 4 out of his 5 UFC wins by submission. And again, this is his first top 15 win, and he's a top 12 actually fighter that he finished. So I'm sure Mokaev's going to get basically, whoever he wants in the top 7, top 8 type thing now. So we're excited to see him. He's a super aggressive. It was fun to see him just be so talented in there. It was nice to see at the end, he jumped out of the cage. He was super happy, and just good to see somebody who's got such a good positive, excitement, when they win and everything like that. So listen, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for joining us for We've Been Drinking MMA for these recaps and highlights of the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card, and this fight was between Trevor Peek and Muhammad Yahya. Trevor Peek won this fight. All 3 judges gave it to him. It was 30-27, 30-27, and then 29-28. I believe he won really all 3 rounds. Ultimately, Peek dropped Yahya with a leg kick in round 1. And just, basically it was like Yahya just didn't do enough in general, but that was definitely the biggest moment of that round. Round 2, Peek dropped him again it's a flash knockdown, but still, it was still a leg kick that dropped Yahya again. And then in round 3, it was just kind of one of those things where it was maybe a little bit closer. Yahya was getting a little bit more comfortable, but ultimately, it was Peek's round again. And then on top of that, he got a takedown with the last 30 seconds left in the round. So, Trevor Peek looked good, man. He was definitely not loading up on completely everything like we thought he would. He was definitely more calculated, and he was more patient, right? He was just waiting for his opportunities, and I think he took advantage of those leg kicks, and it was just smart to see him have a smart game plan. He knew that Yahya had very long legs, and, he was very tall. You saw Yahya in there, and he was very tall, and Peek looked smaller. It was crazy. But Peek was definitely a strong fighter as far as his power, and he just waited for those leg kicks, and, it was just good to see him be patient. It was fun to see him fight. It was definitely an interesting fight overall, and just can't wait to see Peek fight again. To see him get that win back after his last fight, which was a loss. So thank you so much for listening for this recap and breakdown, and please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you. Hey, thank you for joining us at We've Been Drinking MMA for this recap and highlight breakdown of the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card. This fight was between Javid Basharat versus Victor Henry. This was a no contest. It was just a weird fight where Basharat definitely, he was the favorite. He took round 1. He got a takedown, things like that. But in round 2, he just went for a leg kick, but it just wasn't placed very well. He went right in the groin area of Victor Henry, and Henry went down right away. And Henry just couldn't get back up, literally. He's just down for the full 5 minutes. The ref called it off. The doctor tried to give some advice or whatever, but it hit flush right in the groin. And ultimately, there's really not much to say about this. he was carried. That was kind of sad to see. Like, to see someone go down for that long, you could hear him screaming. I don't want to talk too much about it, but ultimately, Josh Barnett, who is a former UFC champion, and his coach helped with the other coaches and helped carry Victor Henry out of there. Just like, putting their, his arm around each of their shoulders or their necks, and just got him out of there because they knew he was in extreme pain and they needed to get him out of there and just get him more comfortable and with doctors and stuff in the back. So ultimately, great job by the coaches getting him out of there. And there's not too much to say, unfortunately. Basharat just shouldn't have, Basharat went, I think, I think it was unintentional, but ultimately, it was just one of those things where it wasn't close. You know what I mean? Like, it did hit the groin, and they were talking about like, oh, it looks like it hit the right of it. It hit to the left leg, but ultimately it hit the groin and then went to the right. And so that was, cleared up, and you could see him, just poor guy was just like on the ground screaming. It was just terrible to see, but ultimately, hopefully they can run it back. And, it was a pretty decent fight as far as like, they were definitely technical in the fight, and it was interesting to see Victor Henry, like, start to maybe think about starting to put pressure in the second round and things like that, but wasn't meant to be. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for joining us for We've Been Drinking MMA for this recap, highlights, and breakdown of Volkanovski Makhachev 2. This fight was between Abu Azaitar versus Sedriques Dumas. Sedriques Dumas won this close decision. He definitely deserved it, I would say. I think all three judges gave him 2 rounds to 1. So ultimately, what happened was he won round 1. I think he definitely got a takedown early, and it was just, I think, tough for Azaitar because Dumas is such a defensive fighter. It was hard to find him, and he had good control on the ground, and he just knew how to go for, let Azaitar be the more aggressive person and then just go for the takedown when it was necessary, when it was more defensive, which is his style. Round 2, Azaitar won that round. He started being aggressive. He got the takedown, and he just was controlling the fight, and he was just, was controlling the distance better. But then in round 3, it was like a 50-50 round. It was a dogfight till the end. But the main thing was that it was pretty equal on the strike count, maybe in the 3rd round. However, Dumas did rock Azaitar with a jab. It literally rocked Azaitar, and Azaitar, buckled, and then, got, kind of went back 2 or 3, 4 feet, and you could tell, that jab was perfectly placed, perfectly timed, and that was basically it. It was a close round in the end, but ultimately, I think the judges saw that and just said, oh, close round, he got buckled, period, and that makes sense to me. So it makes sense why they gave the fight to Dumas. Again, it was close because Azaitar might have, he did have 16 strikes, whereas Dumas had 15 strikes in round 3, but ultimately you get rocked like that in a close round, you're asking for the judges, and all 3 judges, I think probably rightfully so, gave it the fight to Sedriques Dumas. Ultimately, it was very close. And Abu Azaitar, he was 2 years out of the octagon, and so to see him back was great. And Sedriques Dumas definitely showed that, look, that jab was amazing, right? His timing, his IQ in there was really smart. And ultimately, he really didn't get in too much trouble versus Azaitar, who's the experienced kickboxer, and it just shows that both fighters put on a hell of a fight, and it was just one of those fights where, there had to be a winner, but ultimately, they were both their stock goes up in that fight, in my opinion. It was just a great performance by both of them, and look forward to seeing them, honestly, both fight again in the near future. So thank you so much for listening and watching to this breakdown. Please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you. Hey, welcome to We've Been Drinking MMA. We're doing the recap, breakdown, and highlights of the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card, and this was a fight between Anshul Jubli and Mike Breeden. Mike Breeden won this fight with all heart. He lost the first 2 rounds. He dropped the first 2 rounds, clearly, to Anshul Jubli. So Breeden had to go for the KO, and guess what? That's exactly what he did. He went for it, and he got it. He lit up Anshul Jubli the whole 3rd round. He was just landing punches in bunches. Everything just happened to be landing. Jubli, I think, got completely was unprepared for Mike Breeden to be able to land at that clip, at that rate in that 3rd round. And so eventually, Mike Breeden threw a 3-piece combo, and, I think one landed super clean. And then he got one follow-up punch when Jubli had already gone down to the ground. And that was it. Jubli was staring at the floor, and Mike Breeden was celebrating. Mike Breeden was very interesting. I mean, I'll talk about round 1 just really quickly, just to sum it up, though. Jubli was just, he was just landing punches and, he just looked good as far as he wasn't throwing with too much power, but he was landing and he was throwing combos and things like that. And Breeden just was not reacting quite well enough and not fast enough. And same thing with round 2. I mean, he just, from the start, in like 10 seconds into the round, he just lands a big punch. It's just Breeden just never started the rounds right. But ultimately, it was crazy, man. In round 3, Mike Breeden knew he had to go for the knockout. He started barking like a dog. He said at the end of the fight with the interview, he said, "I'm from Kansas, and this is what we do in Kansas City." And he started barking at Anshul Jubli. And I think Jubli was like, I can't believe this is happening. The guy's barking at me. Like, what do I do? This is something you don't prepare for, right? Some guy's going to bark at you. So he was barking and then he was throwing. He was barking more and then throwing more. And he was like, yeah, come on, and then barking. It was crazy to see. But because of that, I think it threw Jubli off a little bit. I mean, all credit to Mike Breeden. Phenomenal performance in that third round to really go after it, man. And you're down on the scorecards. He was 0-3 in the UFC, Mike Breeden was, and he needed this win to stay in the UFC, and he won against an undefeated fighter in Anshul Jubli, who was 7-0. And there was some hype. I mean, Anshul Jubli was minus $550 to profit $100 on Anshul Jubli, and Mike Breeden pulled out the upset of the night, definitely. And it was amazing to see. Mike Breeden just showed that he said and he got stopped in 2 of his 3 fights that he lost when he was 0-3. 2 of those fights he got stopped in the first minute of the first round by, really aggressive, great fighters, Terrence McKinney and also Alex Hernandez. But, he said, and it does make sense, he gets better as the fight goes on. And, when you get knocked out that early, it's tough. But when you fight a fighter like Anshul Jubli goes forward, but he doesn't necessarily throw power with his punches. He throws maybe some combos here and there, but mostly he's trying to set up takedowns. And Mike Breeden did a good job not getting taken down. That was the key, is that he stuffed the takedowns when he needed to in the early round, so he didn't have a chance of getting finished on the ground. And in round 3, he's like, okay, good. I haven't been sapped of my energy. I'm good. I'm keeping it standing the whole fight. Let's go. Let's go for it. And he just showed that he was the better, more powerful striker tonight. And it was great to see him perform and go for it. You don't see, fighters like that go for it. So I'm a huge fan of Mike Breeden now. The guy just showed his heart, and he showed it to the world that he is a force. When you give him a fighter who's on his level and not way ahead of him as far as ranking, give him someone on his level, I think he can do just fine. So, the guy had decent defense. He did take some shots, but ultimately he did stuff the takedowns, and he looked great as far as the third round. Man, his boxing was phenomenal. And honestly, I want to rewatch that third round because it was epic. You know what I mean? And it was almost like a blur now, thinking back at it, but it was amazing. And just a fan of Mike Breeden, man. The guy was barking and punching. I've never seen it in the octagon before, and I want to see it again. You know what I mean? Hopefully he does it in the first round, But anyways, thank you so much for listening to this breakdown, and please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo. Thank you so much. Hey, thank you all for joining us at We've Been Drinking MMA for this recap and breakdown and highlight of the Volkanovski Makhachev 2 card. This is the fight between Nathaniel Wood and Mohammad Naimov. Mohammad Naimov won this fight 2-1. He was pretty dominant, though. Ultimately, Nathaniel Wood was the favorite, minus $300 to profit $100 going into the fight. And Nathaniel Wood was a little bit smaller, and I think that was a big difference. But ultimately, Nathaniel Wood did get dropped in his last fight, and that's what happened in this fight. In the first round, first minute, he threw some punches that missed and, left his head open, and Naimov just countered beautifully. And just dropped him, and it was a flash knockdown, and he got right back up, but ultimately Naimov, he did control him on the ground as well, later on in the fight with a takedown and kept him down for a bit. Round 2, it was a little bit closer, but he had a little bit more control Naimov had on the ground. Wood got the takedown early, but then Naimov stood right back up, within 20 seconds or so, 15 seconds. And then while he was just the bigger guy, he just kept, hugging him basically, and then just took him down, and was on, he was on Nathaniel Wood longer than Nathaniel Wood was on him, way longer. Wood was just ultimately a 135er moving up to 145, and Mohammad Naimov was a 155er moving down to 145. So you can see the discrepancy. It's like a smaller 145er versus definitely the bigger 145er easily. You could tell Naimov had the strength advantage, and he took advantage. It was really smart of him. He won round 2. In round 3, it was a closer round, but then in the end, Mohammad Naimov went for one of his kicks, his patented kicks, spinning kick, And, it bricked, it hit, it just whiffed. And then Nathaniel Wood took him down and just, did some ground and pound, some solid ground and pound. It bounced his head off the floor. It was a good third round for Nathaniel Wood, but too little too late. And all three judges ultimately, they gave it to Naimov, as they should. You could even say without that crazy, kick that missed. And I feel like Naimov he knew he had the fight one, so he's like, let me just mess around and just have fun and throw a spinning kick. But ultimately, he could have, I think, maybe even won three rounds in a row. Honestly, ultimately, what it showed was the bigger man in there who had the power, and he just came off a knockout win, right, versus Jamie Malarkey, Naimov did. And so he was primed, and even though Wood did win his last 3 fights at featherweight, he did get knocked down in the first round against Andre Fili in his last fight, and he got knocked down again by the much bigger fighter right here in Mohammad Naimov tonight. And so, it was just I think it was one of those things where, he went up against a guy who was maybe more aggressive, and Naimov was really fast for the bigger guy. He was fast at backing up, so it was harder to hit Naimov than it was to hit Wood. Ultimately Naimov just showed, man, he was just the better fighter. I was really high on Nathaniel Wood. I thought he was going to be in the top 10 soon at 145. Now Naimov's looking great, right? He dropped Nathaniel Wood, who was looking great. And now Naimov looks to me like a top 10, top 15 guy as well. So it was really cool to see Mohammad Naimov win dominantly, honestly. Thank you so much again for listening and watching this breakdown and highlights of this fight. And please like, subscribe, and comment, please, for that YouTube algo. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We've been drinking an MMA for this recap, highlight, and breakdown for Volkanovski Makhachev 2. This is the fight between Viktoriia Dudakova versus Jinh Frey. Viktoriia Dudakova won this fight 2-1 on all three scorecards, and she won rounds 1 and 3 definitively. Really round 2, Jinh Frey got the takedown, but ultimately in round 1, Dudakova basically knocked her down quickly, not quickly, but it was in the first round, and actually it was the end of the first round, I'm sorry. But she knocked her down in that first round, set the tone. It was a flash knockdown. Jinh Frey did get knocked down on her butt, and she had to scoot a little bit, and then she got back up, luckily. But, it just showed Viktoriia Dudakova's improvement in her boxing and her confidence. She is undefeated, and it showed tonight. Round 2, though, it was kind of weird because Dudakova went for her combo, and Frey ducked under with the takedown. And it was a defensive takedown and just was on Dudakova for most of the round. But then in the last minute, Dudakova did good. She got back up in the last minute and kind of lit Frey up a little bit with some body kicks and some punches. And it was just cool to see that, it was a close round. Even that round could have been close as far as damage I'm talking about. Obviously, Frey had the control time, so the judges gave round 2 to Frey. And then round 3, Dudakova won that. Again, you could tell in the last minute of round 2 that Viktoriia Dudakova was there and she was not going anywhere, and she was just going to light Frey up again. And she showed that message at the end of round 2, and she did that in round 3. She landed pretty flush with some 2-punch combos, and ultimately Frey just wasn't enough on the feet. She was too hesitant, she was too timid, and Viktoriia Dudakova was the winning fighter because of her aggressiveness, and she was taking chances, and she knew that she was going to pressure Jinh Frey, and Jinh Frey was kind of going to fold. I think that was her game plan. It ended up working beautifully. She improves to 8-0. And now she's got a win over a woman who's had 7 fights in the UFC. And so it was an important win for Viktoriia Dudakova. Showed that she had that improvement in the boxing. It was really cool to see. And anyways, thank you so much for listening and watching. And please like, subscribe, and comment for that YouTube algo.